Well, let's get started. I know we're a minute early, but I think we can adjust to that. Good evening and welcome to Inventrek. I'm Charlie Sparks, President of the Greater Kokomo Economic Development Alliance, and we're happy to host tonight's event in cooperation with the Kokomo Perspective, the Kokomo Tribune, and the League of Women Voters of Howard County, and of course the Chamber of Commerce is part of the Alliance, and we co-sponsor with these other organizations. We're going to have two sessions this evening. The first session we'll hear from candidates for judge, obviously. They've already taken their place. Howard County Superior Court 4. And then the second session will be candidates for Center Township trustee. We want to thank you all for attending and thank all the candidates for participating this evening. And now I'm going to go through the rules. I'm going to probably have to read some of this, but I'll be quick because you didn't come here to hear from me. The format for tonight is each candidate will be allowed a 2-minute opening statement. Questions will be asked on a rotating basis so that the candidates will alternate on who responds to questions first. Each candidate will have 1 minute to provide an initial response to a question when it is their turn to answer, and then the other candidates will have 1 minute to respond or rebut. The moderator may, at his discretion, ask follow-up questions based on a candidate's answer or may ask for clarification of an answer from a candidate. All questions were generated by representatives from tonight's sponsoring organizations that I mentioned earlier, and all questions will be asked by the moderator only. No questions will be asked by the candidates to each other, or no questions from the audience. The event is being videotaped for an edited rebroadcast on KGov, so you might want to watch for that if you want a second view at it. Just a few more notes. Don Wilson, to my right, publisher of the Kokomo Perspective, will serve as our moderator this evening. The League of Women Voters will serve as timekeepers. Thank you. I'm going to ask, just as a quick reminder, I'm going to turn my mobile device off, and I'm going to invite you all to do the same. And now I'd like to welcome Don Wilson, Kokomo Perspective publisher, our moderator for this evening.
Okay, does that work? Hans, you won the flip, is that right?
Yes.
All right. Please tell us a little bit about yourself, how you believe you differ from the other candidates. Please tell us things like when, where you graduated from law school, things like that. All that's pertinent to the office you're running for. Please begin.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. My name's Hans Pate, 49 years old. I'm from here in Kokomo. I grew up here in Kokomo. I'm married to my wonderful wife, Carolina, for 17 years. We have 3 children, Sophie and Alana, teenagers, and our little guy, George, 10 years old. And my parents are Dr. Philip and Ruth Ann Pate, and I grew up in a Maple Crest neighborhood, went to Maple Crest schools, graduated from Kokomo High School in 1987, went to Indiana University, Bloomington, graduated with a degree in psychology, minors in Spanish and chemistry, and later went to law school.
This is the debate I'm in.
Went to Thomas Cooley Law School in Lansing, Michigan.
Is it important? That was an important call. I'm so sorry, Hans.
That's okay. And I graduated from law school. I then went to work handling auto insurance claims for State Farm for 3 years. Then I decided to practice law, came back to my hometown of Kokomo in order to practice law, and was fortunate to get a job in the prosecutor's office as a deputy prosecutor handling drug task force cases, which anyone in the prosecutor's office knows. They toss you right in, you get jury trial experience right from the start. Had my first jury trial felony win less than, I think, on this 7th day of the practice of law before I got my first paycheck. So it was kind of trial by fire, but I enjoyed doing it. I enjoyed trial work. I also have my own law office, paid law office. I've been practicing civil law for approximately 18 years, practicing as a deputy prosecutor for approximately 16 years. And I've handled all types of prosecutor cases, including domestic violence, general felonies, and it looks like my time's up. I wanted to thank the Kokomo Tribune and the Perspective and the League of Women Voters and the Greater Kokomo Economic Development Alliance. Thank you.
David?
Thank you. My name's Dave Roslow. Unlike Hans, I never left Kokomo. I was born here, raised here. My parents both lived and worked in factories here in Howard County. Graduated from IU Kokomo 1973. January 1973, joined the Kokomo Police Department and served as a police officer until 1981. While I was on the police department, I decided to go to law school. So I attended law school part-time, 5.5 years, and in 1979, I graduated from law school and started private practice in Kokomo. I stayed on the police department for 79 to 81, left to go to the Delaware County Prosecutor's Office, stayed there for 8 years where I prosecuted all types of misdemeanors and felonies. Came back to Kokomo, maintained my private practice. 2000, went to the Public Defender's Office and was public defender for approximately 8 years. 2009, I was asked to go to the prosecutor's office in Miami County and served over there in 2009, 2010. Been fortunate enough to try a lot of jury trials, probably north of 200 jury trials. Tried cases in the Northern and Federal Southern District Courts, and I would like the opportunity to serve as your judge. My time is limited. I wanted to thank the Donnie and the Kokomo Economic Development community, and thank my family and my people, my friends, my campaign chairman's here tonight. Thank you all.
Rebecca?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out. It's nice to see such a full crowd here. My name's Rebecca Vint, of course, and I'm running for judge of Howard Superior Court 4. Personally, I thought I would maybe give you a little bit of background on me. I'm married. I'm happily married, I should add, to my husband, Tony, for going on 18 years. We have a beautifully blended family. We have 4 kids. 3 of those are my stepchildren who are already raised and out of the house. And then we were blessed enough to be able to adopt our precious baby girl who is here tonight. So if you see a cute little kid, that's mine. And she is in 8th grade at the Central Middle International School. Professionally speaking, I think I am distinguishable from some of the other candidates just simply based upon my experience. When I was still in high school, I worked for Charlie Myers, who is the prosecutor of Howard County at the time, along with Randy Hainlin, who did the juvenile cases. After graduating from high school in 1984 from Kokomo High School, I went on and graduated from the University of Florida in 1989, and then I attended a small private law school in Ohio, graduating from there in 1996. Since that time, I have practiced with a great group of people for over 20 years now at McIntyre, Hilligoss, Vint, O'Keefe, and Welke. And we're a general practice law firm, so I've had so much experience in both civil and criminal cases. I have handled thousands of family law cases. I have been a prosecutor prosecuting crimes against women and children. I have been a public defender. I currently represent the Kokomo School Corporation and have done so for 10 years now. So I'm also well-versed in municipalities and that type of law involving political subdivisions. But I've also previously represented First National Bank in their mortgage foreclosure area. So I just have a great wealth of responsibility, and I have a great wealth of experience, and I hope that you would consider me at the upcoming election.
Justin?
First of all, I'd like to thank the Prospective Kokomo Tribune, Greater Kokomo Economic Alliance, the Kokomo Chamber for putting this event on. I'd also like to thank my beautiful and talented wife, sitting right out front, and my campaign manager, Brad Bray. I also have 2 cute kids, so maybe those might be my kids you see, but my baby girl, Lily, she goes to Wallace. She's 9, Wallace Integrated Art School, and my son, who is almost 15, it pains me to say that, is attending Northwestern High School. I want to start off by saying I'm fully vested in this city, in this great city of Kokomo. My roots are here. My grandfather was a World War II vet, earned 2 Purple Hearts, was a retiree of PPG here in town. My dad worked 30 years at Chrysler. My uncle was 34 years teaching out at Western High School. I was born here. I was raised out near God's country here in Burlington, as they say. I was lucky enough to be valedictorian of my class in 1991. I started my education at Purdue for 2 years. From there, I transferred over to IUK, where I graduated the degree in social and behavioral science, and also a degree of high distinction there. I applied several law schools, got accepted to several, some out of state, but my hopes and dreams were to stay in this community. So I chose the Indiana Law School at Indianapolis, so I could stay close to family and friends. I graduated there in 1999. Luckily passed my bar on the first try, 1999. And so I ended up leaving Indy eventually with a law degree and a beautiful wife.
It's a good place to stop. You won't get in trouble. You aced the bar the first time?
I did.
Hans?
Yeah, took me 2 times, but I took some time off. Took some time off where I worked for State Farm. I was interested in going into claims management was really kind of my goal. That there were a lot of people in the State Farm at the time that that utilized their legal law degrees to go into claims management. And so I didn't take the bar exam right after law school, which is probably a mistake on my part, because then I had to study really hard 3 years later prior to taking the bar exam. But when you pass the bar exam, you don't know what score you got. When you don't pass the bar exam, I missed passing the bar exam the first time by, I think it was 3 or 4 points. So it's one of those things you don't know until you don't pass it. But fortunately, God was with me and I passed it.
David?
First timer. And there is a person here tonight who's my best friend, and we were on the police department together and served a lot of years together, and he kind of remembers me taking the squad car on slow parts of the night and finding a hiding spot and reading and doing what I needed to do so I could get through that bar exam. But yeah, I was fortunate enough to pass it the first time. Thank you.
Rebecca?
I too was a first-timer and thankful.
Tell me how hard this is. How did everybody pass the first time? I hear.
I'm afraid of failure, so I studied a lot.
I think John Kennedy took 6 times or something like that, wasn't it? All right, Hans, we'll start with you. If elected judge, what do you feel are the biggest challenges facing our court system, and how, if elected, would you either change how justice is administered or improve upon the local system?
It seems right now, and I'm not privy to all the information going around, but it seems right now that we have a caseload crowding problem. Appears that Judge Murray has one of the busiest courts in the state, and she does an incredible job of managing that, and is a great role model to all of us up here, anyone who would be fortunate enough to win the election. I think that from my perspective, it would be difficult to improve upon the judges that we have now. I think all of them do a very good job of administering their courts. I think that there's some backlog in the cases in the Drug Task Force area where Judge Minge is the judge. And I think that part of that is just the nature of the drug court and the extra cases that go into that court or have been going into that court for years now, plus the number of jury trials that they end up having to have because of the nature of those dealing cases requiring trials. And so I think that I don't have any specific plans right now. What I can say is I'm a team player, and I'm always willing to take on my share of the workload. And if I'm successful in this endeavor, I would be glad to take the fair share of the cases and to help other courts distribute more cases into Superior Court 4. Thank you.
David?
Thank you. I'm not sure I agree with Hans to the extent that Judge Murray does have a huge caseload, and she manages it very, very well. She has good staff, good administration, and her staff has good administration skills. There is a court maybe in Howard County that's a little slower than others, but as far as Superior Court 4, I would not probably change the days or the scheduling of what cases are heard or what types of cases are heard, because the scheduling as it stands is very well blended with the other courts. You can't have public defenders in 3 different courtrooms, and mine takes precedence. There's some integral problems within the courts. We're now feeling our way through this the new community corrections program, the work release program. There's some things that probably need to be worked out, little bugs that need to be worked out. But I think that the courts in general do a good administration job. Thank you.
Rebecca?
I believe one of the challenges that we have, not only as judges but as lawyers, is attributable to the jail population. I think we're making a tremendous stride by opening up the work release program and getting that working properly. As with any new program, there's going to be growing pains, but I think that is a wonderful opportunity not only to reduce the overcrowding that the Sheriff's Department is facing at the Howard County Jail, but I believe it also gives opportunities for criminal defendants to re-engage in work and become a contributing member to society. So I am very much in favor of the work release program. I'm also in favor of a new criminal rule, Trial Rule 26, that was passed by the Indiana Supreme Court, took effect in January of this year, that talks about how we can release some criminals pre-trial if we do a proper risk assessment of them to ensure that they are not a risk to themselves or to the community, but also to ensure that they could get back to work and prevent any further decline of their family or their family unit.
Justin?
Thank you. I want to start out by saying, pointing out that there's been studies done recently that show that Kokomo has the second most overworked judicial system in the entire state of Indiana. And that is being said even though they added Superior Court just 4 years or 12 years ago. And so that being said, our biggest problem is the opioid crisis, in my opinion. One thing I didn't mention is I have spent 17 years with the Howard County Prosecutor's Office as a deputy prosecutor, prosecuting nothing but felony drug cases. I've seen all the trends come and go recently. This opioid crisis is crushing us. We've had a 70% increase in that court, and numbers just don't lie. The numbers add up. I mean, when you have a 70% increase in caseload in one court, you've got to have resources, whether it's more prosecutors, more courts, or a different way of doing it. And I'm excited that we have done this new case allocation, change the way the cases are being allocated, and I'm excited to have some of those drug cases come in Superior Court Fort and all the other courts.
Very well. David, what changes would you propose to reduce the high number of drug offenses and to better deal with the drug epidemic that Justin just referred to?
This epidemic is something that's here, and it seems to be new and it seems to be increasing, but I will tell you that opioids have been around for many, many years. Back when I was a police officer, we saw heroin, black tar heroin, and those types of things. Heroin's making a comeback. This is not brand new. The problem is that the opioids that are increasing are the pills, prescribed, unprescribed, being sold on the street and things like that. So I think implementation of the programs, better use of the programs that we have to serve addiction, because addiction is a problem, without losing my perspective as a judge, by looking and examining every case on its individual merits, is the best served that I could do.
Rebecca.
This is a tough question. It comes before not only Howard County, but of course, every county within our state and every state across our great country. There are many professionals trying to brainstorm and trying to reduce this epidemic, trying to reduce the addiction issue. In terms of Howard County, I see one need that could really be helpful to us. We do not have any long-term inpatient rehabilitation centers. And I think that would be invaluable in not only helping people get off of the drugs, but stay off of the drugs. Right now, we have a program that allows for criminals to go into a rehab facility for 3 days. Essentially, they detox and go right back out and continue to use drugs. So I think until we can get something in here that can help the defendants long-term, we're going to continue to face this crisis. I also think on the front end, hopefully with the police department, they can shut down some of the flow of drugs into our community so that we don't even have to face and address people who are becoming addicted because it's so readily accessible. I think it's got to be a two-part process between the police as well as rehabilitation. But we need something far greater than what Kokomo has now.
Is there one that you've seen that you would model after, that you've been visited or participated in?
I am familiar with many of them because I'm the deputy public defender in the Chins Court, and so many of those clients have to go into rehabilitation centers long-term until they are able to come out and sustain their addiction-free lifestyle. So there are a number of them across the state that I am familiar with, but I have not visited personally.
Okay. Justin?
Once again, I've been on the front lines of this for 17 years. When I first started, we didn't have a heroin case. It was all crack cocaine Then we moved into the meth era, and now we're getting slammed with the heroin and other opioids. The biggest problem that we see right now are the opioids are killing people. Constant overdoses. We had 44 deaths related to that last year alone. I think it starts with picking these people off from the beginning, even before they're in trouble with the court system. We've got a system of care program that's coming into force very soon in this community. I'm very excited about that, in which we will have individuals, finally a place for those families to go and to be able to find the care they need before the individual gets themselves in the legal system. Once they're in the legal system, the Vivitrol program has worked very well so far. It's brand new. I put a lot of people in that program, and we're excited about that on the front end as well.
Thank you. Hans?
Thank you. And while I think as judge, there's certain limitations as to what you can say and do, but as a community member, I'd like to point out I'm happy that some of the community leaders, including Paul Wyman and others, have got together a group of people to try to solve some of the problems in this community related to drugs. The opioid problem, like everyone says, is a huge problem. It's regional, it's nationwide, and it's persistent, and it's probably going to be around for a while, unfortunately. We do have the Vivitrol program, which is a great program. It doesn't help for people on meth, but it does help in the opioid situation. Like Becky said, we really need more long-term and short-term treatment facilities in this community as well, I think. But you're limited, as a judge, as to what you can do with that. But I think that overall, as Justin said, you got to start young. You got to teach the children.
Thank you, Hans. Rebecca? Howard 4 is one of 2 courts in the county that presides over mental health cases. What would you propose to better serve those persons with mental health problems?
Well, I think the fact that Judge Perry out of Howard Superior Court 2 has implemented a program specifically addressing criminal defendants who have mental health issues is certainly a step in the right direction. I know that these problem-solving courts are very popular at the current time, and I think time will tell as to whether or not they make a substantial difference. But for now, I prefer to refer to them as specialty courts because, in my opinion, every court is a problem-solving court. You don't go to court if you have no problems. But in order to further improve the mental health arena, I think we need to continue to foster great relationships with the psychiatric community that we have at Community Howard as well as St. Joe, and to keep the lines of communication open in terms of new and better ways of treating individuals with mental health issues.
Justin?
Well, once again, as with all the problem-solving courts we have, they're all new. The drug court program being the one that's been around the longest. The mental health court, I think we have a handful of people in that program right now. We're waiting to see, but we have waiting to see how that program will work out. I have great faith that it's the right direction. I'm pleased to see that it's split between Superior Court 2 and 4. And I think one of our issues in this town is we need more inpatient facilities to treat mental health. That is a very large problem in this town at this point. And I think as we have developed the system of care program with the commissioners and Paul Wyman, that we can add that as an element, and that's an important part of it. Thank you.
Hans?
Yes, there's not a lot else to be said. I think it's all been said up here, but Judge Perry has instituted the mental health court. I think that they're showing progress with that. And of course, I encourage that. I have a degree in psychology. I'm not a psychologist, but believe me, as a prosecutor, when a defense attorney lets me know that there's known mental health issues, we always take that into consideration. At least I do as a prosecutor, in how we deal with those criminal defendants. And I know every single judge in Howard County is that way as well. There are ways of dealing with it outside of the mental health court. There are a lot of people who are self-medicating with various different substances, including alcohol, who are bipolar and/or schizophrenic and may or may not have a diagnosis, but they struggle with abuse and/or addiction related to those problems. And so we need to, look at it in a way to try and always help those people with their mental health issues if we can through the court system, because otherwise they may not get it.
David?
Thank you. This state lost a inpatient long-term hospital in the Indianapolis area several years ago. I'm not saying that's bad, because from review, the conditions were deplorable and patient care was a concern and everything like that. You look at Logansport for long-term concerns, those people have to have a criminal element. We have not the ability, and I think I would have to kind of piggyback off of something that Becky said earlier, we need some long-term mental health help in this state. And we don't have it. We don't have it available to our community. We don't have it available to the state. The mental health programs that are in the courts address this. They address it, though, on a short-term basis. They address it on what they have to work with, funding-wise and ability-wise. But there are long-term mental health issues in this state we need to address. Thank you.
How would you consider doing that?
I'd like to camp out on a legislator's door, maybe in Indianapolis. What has happened is maybe if the Sheriff's Association would maybe put together some statistics, up their lobby in the legislature and say, hey, this is how many mental health people the Howard County Jail and the Madison County Jail and Delaware County Jail are housing because of mental problems, not because of criminal problems. They should make their position known and make the importance of that known to the legislature and say, we need some long-term help here. Mental health persons don't belong in jail. They belong in a long-term facility where they can receive treatment and help. They shouldn't be in there with criminals. And if the Sheriff's Association may be the first start to that, if they can put those figures together and get to a legislature, maybe we could get something rolling.
Rebecca, do you agree? And if so, what would you do?
Well, I think it's always a good idea to get on board if we have lobbyists who can help us. Certainly, we do need long-term care. I would agree with Mr. Roslow that people with mental health issues do not necessarily need to be in the jail, but I also am a strong proponent of personal responsibility, and if you commit a crime, mental health issues or not, there are consequences for that type of behavior. So one may lead to the other. It may be a question of which came first, the proverbial chicken or the egg, but I think there are better places that we could treat people with mental health issues other than the jail. And I hate to see that segment of society that needs specialized care put upon the local resources of our Howard County Jail because they are not equipped for that. They are not intended to perform those types of services.
Justin, do you have any comments?
Yep, briefly, once again, to piggyback Becky, when you have a mentally ill individual that certainly shows violent propensities, in this town, we don't have any other option but to house them at the jail because they are a danger to society and even danger to themselves. I don't think that's the best fix, but right now it's all we have. And so, I think we have to watch that as far as there's going to be a segment, I guess, of the population that may be mentally ill but still may need incarceration. That being said, I would say that does not represent the majority of them, and a lot of my people that I see through my drug cases certainly suffer from a whole variety of mental health problems.
Hans, do you have any comment?
Yeah, this has been a problem at the jail for a long time, dealing with mentally ill individuals. And I think that the sheriff and the jail commanders in the past have been very good at communicating with the prosecutor's office and the specific prosecutors, including myself, to let us know when there's someone that's really struggling out of the jail. And in those situations, many times, we have met with the judge, with the defense attorney, and try and get those people out and into some type of family situation where they can be monitored and get them the help that they need. Unfortunately, there's not a formal process in Howard County necessarily to do that, but you also, as I think Becky said, you have to also be careful as a prosecutor. I also see a lot of people who are facing serious time in prison at their sentencing hearing claim that they're bipolar or something, and there's no prior known criminal or no prior known medical history of it. And so you have to, as a judge, be careful in analyzing those kind of things, just like you do as a prosecutor. Thank you.
Justin, in recent years, all courts have experienced a great number of litigants in civil court representing themselves due to being unable to afford legal counsel. How do you propose as a trial court judge to ensure all persons receive due process under the law?
Well, that's a tough one. I mean, first of all, law requires that everybody has due process under the law, whether they're represented by an attorney or representing themselves. However, an individual representing themselves is held to the same standard as legal counsel or as a lawyer, a trained lawyer. I've seen it many times when someone says they want to represent themselves, and the dance kind of that begins with the judge talking to that individual to reassure, to kind of say, look, we do have public defenders available that are trained, that have been to law school, know the laws of the state, and try to encourage them to go that route. It certainly makes it more difficult too on the attorneys in town when you're trying a case against an individual that is representing themselves and is not represented by an attorney for a myriad of reasons.
Hans.
Thank you. Yeah, one of the more sacred duties that a judge has is to make sure that the criminal defendant has their constitutional rights read to them, and that they make sure they explain that they understand their rights and all that. As a prosecutor, it is difficult to try a case against someone representing themselves because they don't know the rules of evidence, they don't understand court procedures and things like that, and it ends up being a difficult process. Every judge, sitting judge in Howard County I've seen, I think all of them deal with this issue, and we've had it happen recently, and it puts an extra amount of pressure on the judge to make sure that all of their rulings are correct and that they bend over backwards to make sure that criminal defendant doesn't get taken advantage of for something that they don't know. And so that's probably the most important thing, so that someone who, we have great public defenders here in town, and if they had that access, then, they would get a fair trial, but you got to make sure that they get a fair trial, even if they choose not to have a public defender.
David?
Thank you. We've seen a huge increase in pro se litigants representing themselves. The courts can deal with that in the criminal side by appointing a public defender. And if they choose to represent themselves, they don't have to have a public defender, but they do have, based upon the seriousness of the case, the type of the case, can have standby counsel, and a public defender who sits in the courtroom can answer their questions for them, but not actually represent them. I think the largest increase we've seen is in the civil side. We see divorces, we see guardianships, coming into the courts with people filling out the forms from the library or online forms and things like that. Persons have to be warned that they're held to the same standard, the same rules of evidence, the same rules of procedure apply to them. But the judge also needs to understand these people are pro se, they don't have that formal training, and do the best they can to protect their rights and give them an equal opportunity in the courtroom.
Rebecca?
While I agree that pro se litigants are held to the same legal standards as attorneys, I also believe that we need to help some of these pro se litigants as judges find their way, so to speak. One of the issues I have come across repeatedly is that grandparents are more and more and more regularly having to get guardianship of their grandchildren because their children have become addicted to drugs and are in jail or are neglectful or abusive of the children, leaving the grandparents the desire and the need to get guardianship of their grandchildren. We often refer them to Indiana.gov or forms at the library that they have to access by a computer. If I were elected judge, I would have the forms copied and ready to hand out to the grandparents. I know in thinking of my 82-year-old father, he doesn't have the ability to get online and process something over the internet. He wouldn't know how to do it. He wouldn't know where to go. So I think we also need to provide additional leeway if we're a judge, pursuant to the judicial canons for those people who represent themselves.
Hans, the Indiana Supreme Court has enacted Criminal Rule 26, which will be effective and mandatory in all Indiana courts as of January 1st. How do you propose to administer criminal cases once this rule goes into effect?
Well, again, I think that you have to make sure that you're not dealing with violent cases, violent criminals that are a danger to the community. And you need to, I think that what Judge Murray and the other judges have envisioned is, in their request for a magistrate, is to have the magistrate review a lot of the initial hearings and possibly findings of probable cause in certain cases in order to try to distribute the workload in the other courts. And in that situation, some of that may go to that particular magistrate, but the idea is to let nonviolent criminals who are not a danger to get out on some type of alternative release or just reduced bond so that they can get out and get back to their jobs and their families.
Thank you, Hans. David?
My administration is a little different because I'm a defense attorney. When I have a client come in, I look at their bond situations, see what their ability is, and look to see if a bond reduction is available, discuss it with the prosecutor. As far as administering the rule, if I were judge, I would probably be very careful. I can't think of anything more terrifying than taking somebody who I think is not a threat to the community and granting them some type of pretrial release and not setting some type of condition or something like that, and all of a sudden having them hurt somebody, kill somebody, or something like that. I think it's a nightmare of any judge or potential judge. So I would probably be rather conservative in that regard. Administering it, following it, it's new. Just like everything else that's new, it's going to have bugs. I'm sure that as it comes out, there's going to be some conditions and additions made to it that all judges are going to have to follow, and I would follow those.
Rebecca?
Well, I am in favor of pretrial release if we can do it safely and if we can do it effectively. We have too many people at the jail, which also increases the cost to the county. And I think it's important that we reduce those costs where we can. And one of the ways that we can do that is through this Criminal Rule 26. It doesn't, to me, there would be a distinction between a 21-year-old kid who didn't know how to handle his alcohol on his 21st birthday and got into a bar fight versus a couple that repeatedly beat on one another because they don't have good communication skills. So people who are likely to reoffend, I don't think should be probably on pretrial release under Trial Rule 26. But I think we really do need to look at whether or not it's a theft or whether it's a public intoxication. Do the people have ties to the community? Were they raised here? Do they have children to support? Did they have employment? And there are risk assessments prepared by people much smarter than me that figure all of this out and can help us determine whether someone be a risk to the community. It's important to note this pretrial release is not only are they going to harm someone upon release, but whether they will return for their trial. And that has to be another consideration if they constantly fail to appear.
Thank you. Justin?
Yeah, the current system prior to the Rule 26 coming into effect is just that we have, based on the seriousness of the crime, level of the crime, et cetera, we set a bond, and then we can have that bond reduced. There's a process there, it's been around forever. And we look at two things when we do bond reductions, whether that person poses a danger to the community or is a flight risk. And I think those are the two considerations you continue, but through this new process, except that you're looking at the possibility of a no bond or a pretrial release. The good thing about the pretrial release program, and once you're confident that, as confident as you can be, I guess, that this person does not really seem to be pose a risk to society or is a flight risk, that you can immediately put them on conditions of basically pretrial release, have them come in for drug testing, et cetera, and immediately get them so they don't get stuck in the jail system, get away, lose a job, those kind of things, but have that supervision that they need from the very front end.
Thank you. David, in your experience, are all races in Howard County treated fairly and equally in our court systems? And
No.
if not, what would you do to change that?
I don't know what I can do to change it.
Wait a minute, what was your first answer? I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
I'm sorry?
Did you say, I thought I cut you off when I didn't mean to. Did you say something before I stopped?
No, I said I'm not comfortable that they're all treated fairly and equally.
Okay.
I've represented a lot of criminal defendants, a lot of black defendants, and I always ask the jury, do you feel that because my client's black, that he's more likely to have committed this crime? And of course, 12 people are going to say no, because that's the politically correct answer. But in the same vein, do I think that they get 100% fair trial? I'm not comfortable with that. As far as me fixing it, Mr. Wilson, I'm not sure that I can. The method of jury selection in this community is fixed by the state, and it's selected through BMV, voter records and things like that. It's a random pick. I don't think judges are in a position where they can improve that. So you asked my personal opinion, and that's it.
I did. How about sentencing? Does it seem to be fair and equal?
You're asking me to comment on the judges, and do I think they do a good job yeah, I think they do. I think they try to do a good job. Honestly, I don't know any judge that doesn't look at any case individually on its own merits, doesn't look at the defendant individually, doesn't try and assess what can I do to fix this situation. Is it a medical problem? Is it a mental problem? Is it just a non-compliance? We've got a person who's just not going to obey the rules and needs to be incarcerated for a long time. I think all of the judges try their very best to make those individual assessments, and I think that's the way it should be.
Rebecca?
Thank you, sir. As the mother of a biracial child, I'm a lot more sensitive to issues concerning race than I used to be. Not because I was indifferent about it, but because I don't think I had my eye on it, because I'm white, and that's the majority of people in America. So my life experience has changed my opinion as to whether or not race is a factor in terms of pulling someone over, in terms of getting the drug dog to sniff around the car, in terms of maybe pursuing criminal charges from the police to the prosecutor. What I will say is that I don't know of any judge in our county or any prosecutor in our county who is racist and who intentionally treats people of color differently than white people. Do we all have a preconceived notion of who criminals are? I don't know. I think that's more of a societal issue. But if you're aware of it and you are conscientious of the choices that you are making, I think our criminal justice system in Howard County does a very good job of treating every individual fairly and equally.
Justin?
Bottom line, I look at it as a criminal's a criminal. I don't ever think about what their race, religion, anything else. It doesn't come into play.
That wasn't the question. It was not what you think is what is happening now.
Well, I don't see a major problem. Now, I'm not on the streets with the police officers who are making the original arrests and how they are coming to determine who they're pulling over, that part of the process. But I can speak on behalf of once the cases come in the prosecutor's office. I don't even consider, and I don't know anybody that considers what the race of that individual is at all. And certainly not, I don't see any disparity in the way the judges treat an individual, nor should they. We're all held to a standard to absolutely not do that. And we're to have no bias, prejudice against any race or religion. So I can speak for myself that it's certainly not going to be an issue if I were elected, and it has not been any kind of problem whatsoever as a prosecutor.
Hans?
Thank you. Race has always been an issue in America. Those of us who are white enjoy white skin privilege. I know it's kind of a liberal idea and I'm a conservative, but we all do benefit from that. But having said that, I agree with I think what everyone has said up here, in particular Becky. I care what other people think about me, and I it's important for me to be fair in everything I do, especially as a prosecutor. As a prosecutor, sometimes it's called, we have a super ethical duty. We have a greater duty than the defense attorney who has a job to do and the judge who has a job to do. We have a duty to not bring a criminal case if we don't believe in that case. If we don't, I don't file cases that I don't believe I can prove beyond a reasonable doubt. We can file a case as long as the judge finds probable cause. I don't proceed to trial unless I feel that I can prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt. And I feel like if you hold yourself to that standard, and also if you turn the tables and say, if that was my family member that I'm prosecuting, would I treat them the same way? And if you do that, you typically always come to the right result.
Follow-up question, you as a prosecutor and then everybody else, do you overcharge and use that as a negotiating tool?
Well, I never intentionally overcharge, but occasionally there are charges that the police request for various reasons. Police officers, many times in their investigations, are right with the victims and the witnesses, and they get impressions that you can't really get as a prosecutor by not being at the scene at the time and gathering all the information. Sometimes later, when you get into depositions with defense attorneys and things like that, you find out that maybe the story might be a little bit different, and I have definitely dismissed higher felonies before. The habitual count is sometimes what we use for bargaining, but the habitual, you don't file it unless it's a valid case, and that's the 3 strikes and you're out kind of thing. But no, I don't ever intentionally overcharge. Thank you.
David, do you have an opinion on that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
When I was a prosecutor in Delaware County, we had for 8 years a no felony plea bargain. We charged you with what we thought we could prove, what the facts showed, what the statements, the witnesses showed, and you either went to trial or you pled guilty. And it was a very effective system. It was a system where I had an investigator assigned to me personally. It worked very smoothly, and they actually had homecomings for Delaware County people at the Indiana prisons because of the method that we used. Do I think prosecutors overcharge? Yes. Do I think Hans overcharges? Yeah, I think he has sometimes. But that's because I'm in the courtroom with Hans on a regular daily basis. My concern about the charging is that I think prosecutors, and I can say this because I was a prosecutor, I think prosecutors read the police reports. I think they file what the police officers ask them to file. Sometime prior to trial, they go back and they look at this thing and go, wait a minute, I don't think I can win that. Meanwhile, somebody's sitting in jail on a charge that they probably shouldn't have because they couldn't bond.
Rebecca?
I agree wholeheartedly with Dave. I too have been a prosecutor. I didn't intend to overcharge, only what I could prove. But now that I am in the drug court with Judge Menges, and I'm often paired with Mr. Alter, do I see overcharging? Absolutely. What frustrates me the most about that, though, is the overcharging is not of the same level of felony. There's often higher levels of felonies that are charged that cannot be proven, and they're often dismissed in a plea bargain or before proceeding to trial. So I think that it occurs. I think it's a common practice. Do prosecutors and defense attorneys both know that? Yes. Does the judge know that? Yes. Is the judge surprised when higher level felonies are dismissed? No, not necessarily. It's part of the process, it's part of the game, it's part of the system.
Should it be?
In my opinion, no.
And we do it a lot in our court system?
Yes, we do.
Justin?
A bit of a hot topic to me. What it comes down to is the legislature sets what the crimes are. They tell us what the enhancements are, and then the police officers tell us what happened. That's all it comes down to. I don't know how it's overcharging when the facts fit the crime and fit the charge. It's kind of getting the feeling that we're supposed to ignore these enhancements that the legislature and the people, there's reasons for laws. I mean, all you folks went out and said this is important, and we think that someone with more dope should be charged heavier, and that's what we do. Quite simply, it's not done to just make plea agreements go easier. It is charging accurately, and that is how I see, certainly for my 17 years, what I have done.
Okay, yes or no question, then we'll get to closing. Okay, huh?
Since I was accused directly of overcharging, there were three cases I reviewed today from the police department, and I didn't file any of the three, Dave, so I don't think I overcharge, and I'm very reasonable in how I look at things.
Last question, then we'll go to closing, and it's yes or no. Do you think overcharging should be used as a tool by the prosecutor's office? Hans, yes or no?
No, I don't think.
Yes or no, that's fine, just yes or no. David?
No.
Rebecca?
I don't need the mic. No.
Justin?
No.
All right, closing remarks. David, we will start with you.
Again, my thanks to all of you for coming. Donnie, appreciate your doing a good job here this evening, giving us some challenging questions to work with. Very quickly, my desire to come to this job was that based upon I want to be judge. I've climbed this ladder of being a police officer, prosecutor, public defender. I want to continue up that ladder and serve this community as judge. I believe I have the experience, knowledge, the ability to do so. I get the opportunity often to pro tem judge for some of the judges. So I get to sit there and I get to talk about some of the things we've talked about tonight and see some of the things. And to all of you, I offer my thanks for your support and for coming here tonight and hearing us out. Thank you.
Rebecca?
I too want to thank you once again for coming and to thank the sponsors for putting this on this evening. I would ask on May 8th that you truly consider the breadth of our experience, of our legal experience, and of our character when you are taking that ballot. I am an ethical person. I treat people respectfully. I get along with people who are well-to-do. I get along with people who are impoverished. I get along with most races, all races. I would just ask that you consider how many legal opinions have to be written when you're a trial court judge, and the fact that I have published appellate decisions that provide legal guidance to other lawyers and to other judges. I would ask that you consider how many hundreds upon maybe thousands of pages of writing I have done as a guardian ad litem, and that I have practiced nearly every aspect of civil and criminal law. I have done jury trials civilly. I have done jury trials criminally. Have not won them all, but I have tried them, and that's part of the process of getting kicked around when you're a trial lawyer. But I have more than 20 years of experience. I'm a hard worker. I put myself through college. I put myself through law school. You would be hard-pressed to find someone with higher ethics and someone who will work as hard as you need someone to work in this position so that we can balance the caseloads and so that we can make it more fair and equitable in our county.
Justin?
Once again, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. I'd like to thank the sponsors as well. I look at this as a kind of a historic time for Kokomo, especially with the court system in what we're dealing with. We're making this major shift, being very progressive, especially in light of other counties, regarding everything from the work release program, the problem-solving courts, which I really believe are probably the future of the legal system, in working toward rehabilitation over incarceration when we can. Excited about the system of care that's coming into place. I'm excited about the new e-filing system. I've always considered myself kind of maybe an efficiency expert. I've been part of 2 very successful law firms, private law firms, starting with Jim Butcher's firm, and I think I gave them a lot of, helped them be more efficient, do more for less, and I think I can bring that as a judge as well. I think that you have the tough decision of deciding who's the best choice here. I've got 19 years of experience, 17 years of trial experience. We look at, reputation for excellent character, I think is very important with a judge. And once again, I think I would fit that category. I think I'm very open-minded, courteous, great listener. I think everybody in my courtroom would have their say and day in court if that's what they want to do. And also, I think that I have that administrative skills to do the job. I've being a part-time prosecutor and running a law firm and being a town attorney for Burlington. I wear many hats, and I've done it for many years. A lot of times those jobs all become full-time jobs in the same week, and I've made it work. I sincerely hope that you consider me your choice for Judge of Superior Court 4.
Hans.
Thank you for all the sponsors in hosting this, and thank you to Mr. Wilson for reasonable questions. I think there's 5 important qualities. There's a lot of important qualities in someone being a judge. There's 5 that I want to touch on. Integrity, which I consider to be honesty and live your life by a strong moral code, which I do. You're not going to find me drunk in a bar or at a strip club. Won't happen. That knowledge of the law. Knowledge of the law is extremely important. This is a court of general jurisdiction, so you've got civil law and criminal law. Got a criminal background in criminal prosecution, and extensive background in civil court cases with a lot of jury trial experience. Common sense. A judge needs the ability to discern dishonesty in people, and I have, that God-given talent, I guess, if you want to call it that. Fairness. Judge must be fair under all circumstances. Just like we ask of a juror, we need to find people that can be fair and impartial, set their biases and preconceived notions aside. A judge has to do that every day in everything that they do. And I'm a fair-minded person, and people know that about me. Judicial temperament, very important. A judge with good judicial temperament will treat all parties with respect, no matter what their station in life, rich or poor, no matter what race, color, creed, anything like that. You need to treat all the parties with dignity and fairness, and utilize reason over anger and emotion. And I have those qualities. And I would say it is an honor to be up here with these individuals. I respect all of them. They all have the competence to be a good judge.
Good place.
But I'm asking for your vote. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all very much. I'm sure the voters really appreciate it, and I'm sure this will be watched many, many times. Thank you. All right, let's begin. Reverend Lee, you're the incumbent and you won the toss. Your opening remarks are first.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and sponsoring agents. It's good to see everyone here. I would first of all like to say that although I have placed myself as the chairman of my committee, I got to recognize the real chairman. What that comes about because I may be the head, but the neck turns the head, and my neck is sitting in the back there, and it's my wife for 50 years. So Miss Tina back there. Being from the faith-based, not-for-profit community, I bring a specific skill set to a office with a specific government that's unique also. Township government is extremely unique, and for one reason that we are under the oversight of several other agencies: the federal agency, the state agency, the county agency, and even in some places the city agency. What that means is that we have to ascribe to the laws. The laws determine what we do. To an extent, they determine how we do it. The laws also state how much money we can have to do what we have to do, and we have to make these things apparent to everyone. What makes me unique is that my leadership style, and my leadership style is that of servant leadership. That's borne me well, over 50 years of service, with over 37 of those years taking place here in Kokomo. The dynamics have been fueled and exhibited through not just serving as a preacher at Second Missionary Baptist Church, which I did proudly for 32 years, but also through many and varied positions. I believe that the body of my work as trustee rises far above any particular incident, and I stand today to let you know that the state of the township is strong, it's hearty, and it's solid. We train to do the job assigned to our hands. We mesh to be ever relevant in this ever-changing landscape to which we are called to serve. We are certainly and surely a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And we stand ready, whatever the challenge is, to continue to be that voice. We will adapt, we will adopt, but we will overcome.
Dawn.
Hi, I'm Dawn Lucian. 35 years ago, I went to work for my father, Gene Lucian. He had just taken the oath to become the Center Township trustee of Howard County. That year, people would be lined up waiting for hours to be seen by a township caseworker. That was 1982. The unemployment rate was 26%. The township was $1.2 million in debt, and on top of all that, the cost of poor relief that year was another $1 million, with the taxpayers already heavily burdened. Alleviating pain, suffering, and desperation of so many was our mission. My father was just the man for that cause because he was a true servant leader. And as my father's daughter, I was where God wanted me to be. Now, my siblings and I were raised never to judge. We had been taught that we could find ourselves in the same situation. I was living what I had learned. Now, over the course of my 33 years of working for Center Township, I've received the invaluable benefit of experiencing firsthand how resources and support from the state and federal level can quickly come and go, and what that means to our community. Because I was a part of the township during its time of famine to its turnaround to becoming a model of local government, that makes me uniquely qualified. Because I held or worked at nearly every position at Center Township, I have been given knowledge, experience, I have been given appreciation, I have been given insight that is unmatched. I evolved from being the trustee's daughter to a valued and respected leader among the staff and others in our community. I became the trustee's right hand. I am seeking this office because I intend for it to become an environment where we are making a difference in people's lives, not in a transactional way, but in a transformative way. And ladies and gentlemen, you know I will do it because you know who my mentor was.
Reverend Lee, how would you make the community more aware of township services?
One of the ways that we are making the community aware is our attendance at various organizations, our community service providers, who I call our force multipliers. We have already had what we call an open house. We're planning another one this year where we invite our community service providers and the public to come so that we can showcase them, the jobs that they do. It also allows them to have interaction one with another so that we can eliminate duplication of services. I'm stand ever ready to go to any organization, any place that seeks for us and asks for us to make presentations about township government, and specifically about Center Township government of Howard County, which is and continues to be and still is a model township.
Don Lucian.
Well, I would use a lot more social media. I would have an awesome website. I would be reaching out, doing a lot more community outreach and engagement by going to organizations and clubs. I would also explore the idea of doing a newsletter because a lot of the taxpayers may not use the township services, but it's their tax dollars that are being spent, so they need to be educated on where their tax dollars are going. And from what I understand, they do not know. They do not know what the township provides.
Thank you. Reverend, you have any response?
Well, they have not known for a long time. We do have a wonderful website. We do have a Facebook page. We do make these presentations, and we're open to all of those, and we continue to let people know just what we do, and not only what we do, but how we do it. And I have an excellent staff that's been there, and so that allows me to be free to make some of these things and still carry on the work on.
Don Lucian. In 2018, some Center Township residents are now relying upon volunteer fire services because an agreement with the city of Kokomo could not be reached regarding professional fire protection. In retrospect, could that have been handled differently? And what room, if any, is there for improvement?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Over $300,000 worth of fire equipment should never have never been given away for 90 days worth of coverage. The leverage was given away at that time. And I have people here tonight that are from Darrell Chapel, and my heart still goes out to them. The volunteer firefighters are valiant public servants, but you cannot beat the response time that the city firefighters provide, and now they are dependent upon Greentown to provide fire protection for their area. I would have gone immediately, the beginning of the year, to the city and tried to negotiate. There's no reason to have not to. And there's nothing we can do about it now. But the leverage was given away.
Reverend Lee.
If that equipment was leveraged, it was actually given away in 2012, as that contract states, because that's when the deed was turned over to the city for 5 years of coverage. That being said, now the slate is clean. We are open to have negotiations and discussions without that behind us. And I reject the attempt to place one incident to signature my term in office for a contract that I inherited before I came into. But yeah, going forward, yes, they say this of a quarterback, you have to have a short memory. Yeah, the past may have been incomplete, but now we're on a new scrimmage line.
That's good.
Don, you have a rebuttal.
Well, Reverend Lee, I think you're being flippant about a very serious situation, and I don't think that's right, because these people deserve better, and they deserve better at that time. And, oh gosh, that just really bothers me. You know, you're a public servant. You serve them. And you didn't even show up to meetings that they asked you to come to.
Can I claim my time to talk back to her since she's talking directly to me?
Go for it.
What you call flippant, I call illustrative. And I do, and I still care for the people of Darrell Chapel. I had the hand that was dealt with me, and I dealt with it the best way I could, and we will continue to deal with it that way, and that's the way that situation is. Your 35 years with Daddy is fine, and I would do anything to disparage his character or his effect on the township. But putting those things which are behind, I'm pressing forward.
Did I get my full time in?
Where do we start with? I'm sorry, Don, we started with you and we have to end with
Okay.
Reverend Lee. Next question is to you, Don. In the last legislative session, the necessity of some townships was called into question. How does Center Township play a vital role in Howard County, and how could this be improved?
Are you referring to consolidation?
No, there would be consolidation. It'd eliminate some trustees and consolidate them with other trustee offices, yes. There'd be
Repeat that question, please.
in the last legislative session, the necessity of some townships was called into question. How does Center Township play a vital role in Howard County, and how could this be improved upon so we would not be looked at as one of the ones that was going to be eliminated?
I see what you're saying. I'm sorry. Well, one of the things that township trustees can provide are more programs. We just had the judges up here, and one of the issues they were talking about was mental health, mental illness. And the jails are all full of people that have mental health issues, and that's not the place for them. And that's one of the things, there is a payee program that Center Township Trustee's office currently has, and they could be providing more programs for the mentally ill. And when I'm trustee, that's one of the things that I'm going to be involved in, is providing more of those types of service and making sure not only are their basic necessities met, but that they can access things like apply for food stamps and navigate them through the system where they don't have somebody right now on their behalf providing case management. Those are the kind of things that trustees can do that will make them more relevant.
Reverend Lee.
That's certainly true, and we are, as a township, already involved in some things dealing with the SOC, dealing with mental health in our partnerships, and we also stand ready to do these things. However, we can do it through our force multipliers or ourselves, and everyone, of course, everyone's right. These institutions of incarceration are not the place for those with mental illness. The way our country has dealt with mental illness is a sin, and it's a crime, but we stand ready to work and operate in all these avenues, even as far as the opioid crisis is concerned. All of our employees are AED trained, CPR trained, and we're also trained in Narcan administration. And we continue to be available and resilient and open to those things that we may do in order to alleviate this problem.
Reverend Lee, the previous trustee built up a huge rainy day fund, and now it is being spent down. What's your take on this situation, and do you see any problem with it the way it exists now?
No, I don't. Yes, kudos go to the not stockpiling, but the stewardship that allowed for that. We are spending it down, and the reason we're spending it down is to alleviate tax burden, but we are spending it down slowly and responsibly in order that we can maintain our readiness for those times that will come, and the times will come. This is April. We got snow in April, so tornadoes are going to come, and all these things are going to happen. So while we spend it down, we do it responsibly so that we can react to things that are not might happen, but things that are going to happen. And so that's how we're operating now. We're limited as to how we can do those things, but then we have the ability to react to bad situations, and we stand ready to do that.
Don Lucian.
Well, then why did you raise the levy by almost double last year?
Number one,
Wait a minute. You'll have a chance to rebut, Reverend Lee. Go ahead, Don.
Center Township is sitting on a substantial reserve, definitely, and has healthy cash balances in all of their funds. So I do not understand why then did they not pass that savings on to the taxpayer and lower the levy. Instead, the levy last year was increased to almost double.
Done. Reverend Lee, do you have a rebuttal?
The increase in the levy was done in order to maintain what we have. And
Use Don's microphone until we get this fixed.
we wanted to maintain certain levels so that we do have access to those funds. And another funny thing about figures, some things sound scary, especially when you use percentage. If you're paying a dime and the levy, and you end up having to pay 20 cents instead of a dime, that's a 100% increase, but in actuality, it was really, really small. But it also allows us, and it gives us the latitude that when those things do come, we don't have to go back and increase it again, that we've already got these reserves and the tax levy in place in order to do the things that we can continue to do and ultimately still not be a burden to the taxpayers.
Do you have a rebuttal?
Okay, so you're spending down the rainy day fund, if I understand you correctly, because you have a lot of money and you want to spend it out responsibly.
Spend it down.
Spend it down responsibly, so that means it's going out. But then you raise the levy over here. I don't understand how that makes sense. That's like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing.
I'm sure you have a
Do you-
response.
The levy was $1.3 million in 2016. In 2017, it went up to $2.1 million. That's almost double.
I have a chart that talks about comparison of budget and levies from 2014 to 2018, and it shows specifically how the total budget has dropped from $4,311,224 to $2,442,848, while the tax levy has moved up, has dropped from the previous year, which was 2017, of $1,627,402 to $880,000. So the levy, the increase of the levy still does not match those things that it was earlier. You can find these things on the website. You can see everything that we do, and it's called Dashboard. You go to DLGF, SBOA, and as citizens, you can go to that and pull that up and find out all these answers.
It's actually called Gateway.
Thank you.
But Gateway is the Department of Local Government Finance, and that's where the DLGF comes from.
We built up a substantial rainy day fund over an extended period of time with the last trustee. By building up such a large fund, was it possible we was overtaxed during that time? Don, that's to you.
No. When you consider that your mission as the township trustee is the care and oversight of the poor, you had better be standing in the ready with ample funds available should there be a downturn in the economy, a disaster, or an emergency. And what you do is you forward fund during good economic times so that you are prepared should there be a downturn.
But I think we were building up the funds when we were having a downturn in our economy, I believe.
I don't know that we were.
Okay. Reverend Lee, do you have a response?
Obviously, that there is a gap that's there, and one can infer what one wants, but it appears like if the money was coming in and the money was not being spent, then that raises a question as to whether or not we were overtaxed or not.
Don?
We lowered the levy. We moved money into the rainy day fund, and we passed a resolution that money was set aside for an unforeseen circumstance such as a downturn in the economy. That's the money that is now being appropriated by the current administration, and we lowered the levy. But now the levy that we lowered was then raised later by Reverend Lee.
But still not as high as it was before the lowering.
Thank you. Reverend Lee, you both possess experience within township government. What makes you more qualified than your opponent?
Fresh look. New methodologies. I believe in training, and the training is extended not only to my employees, but also to myself. And along with that, the building of the team concept, so that people not only know who the trustee is, they know who the team trustee is and the things that we do. And I've received a notice that this is something that unfortunately was missing in previous administrations. Everybody knew who he was, but now everybody knows who they are.
Don Lucian.
33 years of experience. I have not only learned so much from my father, but I've learned from trustees all over the state. I've actually worked for trustees all over the state and helped them. That's what I'm doing currently. I have been, I served at the Township's trustee's office during several presidential administrations, governors, and it trickles down. Many programs that come through the state and federal level, I've been involved in. I administered a federal grant, the HPRP, during this last recession. I have had experience in various economies. You just can't pack everything in that I've learned in 33 years, but I've learned a lot, and I'm a really smart girl.
Reverend Lee.
And that is true, and we appreciate that as a trickle down, but also we've been set apart as a thing of boosting up, because we found out things that have worked for us, which is one of the things that's helped make us continue to be a model township, which also added to our recognition as a Township of the Year. So it's both ways, but we believe that we are innovative in the things that we're doing, to the point that many other townships actually call on us as we share with them the things that we have done and are doing.
Don, what partnership is there with 211, and how can it be improved?
Partnership with 211,
Yes,
I'm not sure what 211 is.
the
United Way?
United Way, 211.
I thought maybe
211,
talking
I'm
about the
sorry.
radios. Everybody's talking about the radios. No, I know about United Way and 211. I do know that because I've been active in the systems of care, there are some of the things that we're identifying in that are not involved with 211. And so there's going to be some things that maybe we're going to be able to add to that. So that's going to be an improvement. And I think that I will bring an improvement with the relationship with United Way and all partnerships.
Reverend Lee.
We are still involved inextricably with 211. We do jointly back and forth for investigations and the like. And again, as I referred to, I have 19 force multipliers, which are not-for-profits and faith-based organizations that are at the grassroots that do things everywhere from children to senior. And so we maintain a constant connection with them. Our investigators and caseworkers, they know each other, they know the things that they do, and that's why when you look at our annual report and you see the value of dollars, one of the things that you see that most people miss is the amount of time that our caseworkers and investigators spend on referring to others. And 211 is one of the places we refer to, and 211 also refers people to us. So it's a companion agreement with them that continues.
Like I said, I'm going to work very well with United Way. I work very well with all of the people in United Way, and I will be doing a lot of referring. They'll be referring people to us.
Last question before we go to closing remarks. Reverend Lee, how can Center Township be even more active in providing services throughout the community than it is now?
I think by increasing our participation, we're looking for new ways to participate in bringing not only the basic necessities of life, but things that speak to the quality of life of the individuals within our sphere. I'm also offering opportunities for education and training as we continue the process of not a handout, but hands up. And that's why this button that says Trustee Lee shows hands open.
Don.
Working with the working poor, the way I understand it, there's not a lot of client traffic in the Township Trustee's office right now, and that's the way it is all over the state. But I think there's a lot of working poor out there. There are people that are barely making it, but we need to incentivize them to work. And so there's a lot that the township can do to provide support and help. This 60% of Black youth in our community that are living in poverty and that have health issues. This is something that we've got to address, and we have to seek to understand why, and the township should and must be a part of that, and the mental illness issue, more case management all the way around. The township currently is not providing that, but that's something that I'm going to make a difference on.
We are in partnership with those with the Mental Health America and some other places. That's not to say that we're doing everything that we can or everything that we should, but when those doors are open, we walk through those doors and then we initiate some of those doors too. And there still are a lot of people coming through our doors. We are speaking to and working with the working poor, and we do this every day.
Well, it's time to bring this spirited debate to an end. Closing remarks, Don Lucian.
I know what a true servant leader is. I worked for one, I learned from one. And once you've experienced that, it's really hard to settle for anything less. We can't go back, and that's not what I'm trying to do, is take us back. I'm going to take us forward. I'm going to take Center Township forward. Center Township needs a leader. We all know that we have an opioid epidemic in our community. It pains me greatly that the Center Township trustee is not an active participant in this fight. That is where I would be as your trustee, standing shoulder to shoulder with the city, the county, and other community leaders, just like I have been doing since early fall and like I'm doing now. Reverend Lee, I'm inviting you here and now to join us in the system of care tomorrow. I want you to come. Why haven't you been a part of it? Where have you been? We need a leader on the budget. Reverend Lee sits on a substantial reserve in his rainy day fund and has healthy cash balances in all of his funds. He says he has too much money, so why didn't he pass that savings on to the taxpayers? Instead, he doubled the levy last year. That makes no sense. It is like the right hand not knowing what the left hand is doing. Better yet, it is like pouring water continually in a bucket, and that bucket has holes in it, and we, the taxpayers, are paying the water bill. Center Township needs a leader on administrative costs. Reverend Lee spent $222,000 on direct relief to clients last year without providing case management or hands-on programs other than the payee program. But he spent, to his $222,000, he spent $840,000 on payroll and payroll benefits. Center Township needs a leader, and I am that leader. We need to put another Lucian back in the Center Township trustee's office, so vote for me, Dawn Lucian, on May 8th.
Reverend Lee.
I've been in this community, this city, and this township for over 30 years. I continue to be, and I plan to stay here to do my part in the continuation of becoming a model city of first. I want to be, and I believe I am, a larger part of that leadership. I go to places that I am invited, and then there are some places where I have invited myself. I did receive an invitation to the SOC, and I was extremely grateful for that. But there have been many instances where I have not received an invitation, and I have also let that be known, my dissatisfaction with it. I'm asking you to continue to allow me to serve you, seeking innovative methodologies again, and not reinventing the wheel, but making it a better. Surely in the city of First, we appreciate that. The improvements that you have seen, and I appreciate your 35 years of experience of working, but in your 33 years of working in every job, you've missed one, and that one is the trustee. All right, you will continue to see these improvements that we make as we ensure that everyone in this community has the assistance they need in difficult times. The services will be delivered without any sort of bias or prejudice or unleavening of the playing field. I'm passionate about my service to the community, and I will continue to seek ways of and training to be the best trustee I can possibly be. I ask that you help me to help you by voting your conviction based on facts, truths, and results, and not look at it as an entitlement or a birthright. The votes will soon be cast, and you, the electorate, will make the choice of direction this office will go. In your choosing, I would just pose this question to you. Do you want to be pushed by Lucian or led by Lee?
Thank you, both of you. Thank you very much. Now, remember, next week will be the second and final forum. Candidates for County Council District 3 and 4 and County Commissioner, 6 p.m. right here. And there will be a reception following. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.